right, dickhead. Oh shit. Hi. Hi everyone, my name is Sunday Blake and I am your Guild President. Thank you for tuning in today to see the Guild President candidates and what they have to say about issues that matter to you. Our student elections are such an important part of our student experience. You get to choose who represents us for the next academic year on all levels, subject chairs, college officers and full-time officers. And there's already been over 3,000 votes, which is incredible. Keep it up. If you voted, spread the word. You can also go back and vote before You can also go back and vote before 4 p.m. for any positions you're eligible to vote in if you haven't voted in them all. If you want to find out more about what each candidate wants to change at Exeter, then head over to the Guild website, exeterguild.com/elections. If you have any questions you'd like to ask, comment them in this feed or on Twitter using hashtag #XEXEelections21. Each candidate will have up to 30 seconds to answer the questions before them. Before I move on to the candidate questions, I just want to take a moment to condemn any abuse that candidates have received. The gendered and sexualized nature of comments pertaining to candidates' private lives does actually constitute illegal harassment. These characteristics are protected under the 2010 Equality Act, and the publication of these comments violates the 1988 Malicious Communications Act. There is zero room for hatred in this union. This ballot is one of the strongest ballots I have ever seen for any SU president, and I want to publicly congratulate these candidates for the pose, grace, and maturity they have shown throughout. I hope that they take reassurance, as I did last year, that personal attacks in lieu of any manifesto criticism just shows how strong a candidate they are. Right, now that's out the way. I'm going to introduce each candidate to tell us a little bit more about themselves and why you should vote for them. So each of them will have 1 minute to do this. So the first up is Lewis.
Thanks, Sunday. Hi, everybody. My name is Lewis Martin, and I stand on an agenda to see improvements in mental health, strengthening mental health support, ensuring a positive student experience, and empowering our community. Thank you to everybody who's voted so far. As Sunday said, the turnout is really high. So thank you so much. The support has been amazing. So thank you to all of you. If you haven't voted yet, please vote. And it's been a challenging year for us all. And I'm just so proud of the messages that our campaign has been able to champion about mental health and about safety. So vote Lewis to see the Guild represent us, the students, to the university. And vote Lewis for president to see an agenda for mental health and student safety. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lewis. The next up is Lily.
Hi everyone, I'm Lilly Margarelli. I'm a final year PPE student, and as you already know, I'm running to be your Guild president. I believe I'm the candidate with the most experience in terms of total wellbeing at our university. I've been able to gain first-hand insight into the real struggles that go on in students' lives, as well as being a part of trying to solve and prevent these struggles. I have both on-the-ground experience in terms of my involvement with Nightline, as well as higher institutional level experience. There is a time for radical change, but that isn't right now. We've had such a turbulent year, and what we need is to continue the work of current sabbatical officers, not reverse it. My manifesto isn't sort of simply baseless ideas. They reflect my values, and these values have been put into action by the work that I've done in the past 2.5 years at university. I am genuinely passionate about the student experience and the welfare of every single person at Exeter. I would feel privileged to have the opportunity to continue the work of current officers in creating a guild that serves you and a university that hears your voice. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lily. The next is George.
Hi, I'm George. I'm a third-year physics student with a variety of experience across different areas of university life. I've recently been working with the Guild on their Get Connected campaign and have held multiple committee positions across different societies, including one as welfare officer, and have been a producer on 5 theatrical productions while at university. All of this has prepared me for this role in terms of leadership, coordination, and welfare responsibilities. They've also shown me where the cracks in the system are from many different perspectives. I've been working on my manifesto since the start of this year to make sure that it has actionable points on how to deal with the issues presented. I've spent my time listening to students, going to town halls and speaking to current SABs to make sure the points I aim to work on in my manifesto are feasible and realistic. Especially after this past year, we need to see changes that are inspired by engaged student voices instead of powered by bureaucracy. My manifesto is wide-ranging, but so are the problems facing us. We need a guild that listens and acts upon what its student body is experiencing. This is what I aim to bring to the table, a chance for all students to bring their voices to the system that represents them and have it not only be heard, but acted upon.
Thank you so much, George. And last up, well, certainly not least, we have Sian.
Hi everyone, thanks Sunday. So I'm Sian, I am a third year archaeology and forensics student, and obviously I want to be your guild president next year. So kind of like Lily and also opposite, I would say that I have the most sort of all-rounded experience. So I've been quite high in both AU clubs as club captain of cheer, and I've also been quite high in academic clubs within the guild for archaeology and forensics, my academic society, as well as I've also always been my year's cohort representative from years 1 and 2, and I was also subject chair this year, which has been an amazing opportunity. It means I've been able to advocate for a lot of students on a smaller scale than would be in this job. So what I would say is that my role and what I believe that the guild president at its core is the fact that it's advocating for you and it's advocating for the other VPs. And so what I believe is that the whole role should be spent around getting your feedback and lobbying for you and making sure the university is answering to you and not the other way around. So all of my manifesto points are sort of around the themes of engagement, student safety and wellbeing, collaborative and transparent leadership to make sure that you guys always know what's going on and know how you can get involved, and also sustainability and guild affiliation. On top of that, I also believe that whilst we can make a lot of change institutionally within Exeter, I believe that it should also be a massive movement right now with the political climate that we're in to also make a move nationally as well and protect rights such as student tenancy, because obviously
time.
Yeah.
Sorry, someone did flag that and I was not looking. I was looking at my next piece of text because I'm attentive. Key skill for guild president, everyone take note. So thank you for those introductions. We also have, sorry, I've lost my spot, all flustered now. Moment. We also have Vibhuti and Charlie as candidates, and as a reminder, you can view their manifestos and vote for these candidates on the website, but unfortunately they are not here for the debate tonight. So thank you for all the guild presidents for those great introductions. Don't forget that you can submit your questions by commenting in this feed or tweeting using the XElections21 hashtag #EXEElections21. We may not be able to answer all of your questions today, so do reach out to the candidates if you would like an answer to your questions. As a reminder, each candidate will get 30 seconds to answer, and we'll be asking the same question to all candidates. So first up, I'll be asking a couple of questions of my own as guild president, and then I will be looking at the questions that are sent to me by the comms team who are monitoring the chat. So it's well known that it took me 3 degrees and a year as vice president to be confident enough to run for guild president. Why are you confident enough to run for president this year? And I would like to go to Lily first.
Thanks, Sunday. So I think it comes down to 3 things for me. So experience, determination, and good listening skills. So in terms of experience, yes, I've been involved in societies and the wellbeing side of things, but I've also secured £7,000 from the university to combat period poverty. And that's a project which will be going into place in term 3. I sat on the recruitment panel for the current guild CEO. So I've really had an insight into what the plan is for the guild moving forwards. I am very determined. I think that comes across in the amount and the sort of breadth of things that I do at university. And my good listening skills have only grown from my involvement with different societies, both on committee roles, but also as volunteers in various sort of wellbeing related things.
Thank you, Lily. I'd like to go to George next.
Hi. So in terms of the confidence for going for this role, I've had many leadership opportunities at this university, which I've been immensely grateful for. I've produced multiple shows which involve coordinating many teams, making sure that you're on budget, making sure you're on target. And I believe that experience has put me in good stead for this opportunity. I've been a treasurer on one of the theatre societies at this university, which has taught me the financial responsibility that you obviously need to be a guild president. And I've also had many welfare opportunities to get involved with the welfare side at this university. I've been a welfare secretary for an a cappella society this year, which has given me on the ground experience of how to deal with society welfare at that level, and working with the guild on their Get Connected campaign to deal with welfare at that level.
That's time. I'm sorry, Georgie. Sorry, it's very, very strict this evening. Sian?
Yeah, sure. So I would say the two key things here are proactivity and assertiveness, and I think I've shown both. So being SSLC, that means that I've had a lot of experience really advocating for students. I've put on focus groups for postgraduate students. I've created study sessions for cohorts within my degree to make sure that everyone's getting their voice heard as SSLCs. But equally, I also think you have to be proactive, which is why I've actually been part of the steering group for the tuition fee refund campaign, which the Guild is working on now. So I'd say that both those things put together put me in good stead because I'm already doing it on a smaller scale.
Thank you so much, Sian. And last but not least, Lewis.
Well, Sunday, the first thing is my passion. This was never something that I planned to do, but I saw what's happened over this last year, and I had to stand up to try and get student voices represented, but also my experience, the professional experience I have. I worked and was very influential on the passing of the animal welfare law in Parliament, which was to increase the maximum sentencing for animal cruelty offences from 6 months to 5 years. I had to be so organised, so connected, effective, and also good at communicating and listening to get something like that done.
Time, Lewis. I'm sorry. I'm going to feel so horrible all the way through this.
Right.
Thank you so much, everyone. Obviously, the passion coming through. I'm going to go into the next question. It has been a turbulent year. What lessons do you think that we can take forward from COVID? I'm going to go to Sian first.
Yeah, sure. Oh, sorry, I was actually muted. So one thing I would say is that X has already had a digital learning plan way back from 2016. It's only because of COVID this year they were actually able to implement it. And yes, whilst we'd all love to go back to a time where we can all be on campus, it would be really great to implement those digital learning skills that we put in place this year and we funded this year, so that everybody's able to access the same content no matter where they are. So whether that's for international students or for students that just don't feel comfortable coming back to campus quite yet, I think those sort of accessibility issues need to be tackled and need to be kept on beyond COVID and for as many years as possible.
Thank you so much, Sian. Lily?
So I think the main thing that we can take away is that there are some real positives. So there's been a closing of the Black attainment gap as well as the disabled student attainment gap. So that's 20% and 5% respectively. So I think what we need to do is make sure that we're not regressing when we come back to in-person teaching or teaching post-COVID. So we really need to learn lessons from what we've gained from this sort of massive growth of online resources that have become available. And of course, as well, with the reduction in the disabled student attainment.
Sorry, Lily, that's the end. I'm so sorry. Very important point on disabled students, but it is time. Lewis?
I think the biggest lesson that we have learned, which is a strange lesson to learn, but also a necessary one, students are people. First of all, they're very resilient. The fact that students have gone through this really tough period, and a lot of students have thrived and worked really well. Everything you're doing, students doing assignments at this hard time, really impressive. But also we've learned university is about opportunity, it's about friends, and it's about in-person events and lessons. Thank you.
Thank you, Lewis. George?
So two things that I want to point out here are continuing to work on the accessibility that we've managed to develop this year, which Lee touched upon, and also communication. One thing that I think that we've been lacking this year is clear communication, both from the university and from the Guild. Many times we've received email updates from the Guild that have been unclear or flip-flop from week to week, and we need to make sure that that is clear and constant for students in a place where they can access it. And also working off what Lily said, making sure the developments that we have made in accessibility continue to be there and also continue to be developed upon, so that those disabled students and any other students that need that online platform still have access to it, and it is still at the same level as
That's time, George. I think you're coming to the end of your point anyway, but thank you so much. Now, all of you mention wellbeing in your manifesto, and all of you indicate that you believe there is room for some improvement. So I'm going to go straight back to George. What are the current wellbeing shortfalls?
I think one of the main wellbeing shortfalls is cultural competence at the Welfare Hub. There isn't enough that caters for students of the Bain community at our university, and also students that just have a different culture than what general welfare officers expect. We need to bring in more people who know about different cultures, know about different issues that can be raised there and how to deal with them in a culturally sensitive way. I think we also need to make sure that services like Nilari are available on campus rather than a phone service, as we've all learned this year that in-person, face-to-face communication is something that we all value so much.
Thank you so much. Lewis?
I think there's 3 key points here. First of all, the university reducing staff over the pandemic. I think that's a disgrace. 2, long-term support. I think that's a shortfall from the university, and also grassroots. And we've said that £1 million extra should be spent to improve these 3 areas.
Thank you so much. Lily?
I think there's 2 key things: lack of communication and collaboration between the different support services and groups at the university, and also out with that, not just support services, but also sort of like academic hubs. Basically, anyone that works with students needs to understand the different resources and signposting that's available to those students. Beyond that, we need to create a university experience where students don't feel forced into requiring wellbeing help. I think spending money on the preventative measures is going to reap much better benefits than spending money on sort of the aftermath of a poor university experience.
That's time. Thank you. I came to the end anyway. Thank you. Finally, Sian.
So I'm in agreement that 2 of the biggest issues with wellbeing are they're underfunded and oversubscribed. So for underfunding, I want to review into the wellbeing, because the university has this issue of just throwing money at a problem rather than accurately looking at what the money can be spent on. So things like Nilari and developing those programs. Equally, I think we should look at the reason why, like Lily, students are going into wellbeing. So things like reforming the mitigation system so that it's fairer, and so that even extending it by a week, I think would do a lot for our students. And also looking at the deferral system during summer for students with care responsibilities also. Great.
Thank you. Have I asked everyone for this? I've lost track. Yeah, I have. Okay. Oh, God, it's hard, isn't it? What was that about 3 degrees? Okay, right. You 3 of the manifestos mentioned decolonisation. Lily, what do you mean by this?
Okay, so decolonisation means that we need to move away from the sort of white, Western and heteronormative rhetoric which sort of rules our academic discourse. And to do this, there needs to be improved knowledge of reading resources. Like, that's just one way that we can do it, but that's, I think, a really kind of simple and easy way that can be addressed. And I think what's important is to learn from the student groups who've really already been pushing for this, and that's especially seen in the Humanities College. So I'd like to sort of support VP Education in doing that.
Great, thank you, Lily. George.
Hi. So one thing that I mentioned in mine is working with the Bain network, Bain and Queer network on campus on anti-racism, looking at things like reducing the BME attainment gap, and obviously talking to them, seeing what they want, making sure that what their voices are saying is put into action by the Guild. I think in this, obviously, I'm not a member of the Bain community, and therefore I don't know exactly what they want, and I want to hear what they want, and I want that to be enacted. Yeah.
Thank you. Lewis?
So yeah, I'm looking forward to a VP of Education leading on this. I think academia needs to be diverse and inclusive. We can learn the lessons of history and include all students in this. Our team has led on these principles. We have a BAME academic rep who's our outreach secretary, who has really kind of led the process in our campaign of understanding this. Thank you.
Thank you. And Sian.
So actually helping in November 2020, so not very long ago, actually did a study on this. There was a statistic that 53.8% don't believe that curriculums are reflective of a diverse student background. So that needs looking into. So the main thing I want to do with that is I want to reform SSLCs so that we have equality reps at the same level as cohort reps, so they have a bigger mandate and a bigger say. And within that also create focus groups so that students and BIPOC students and BAME students actually get a chance to have an input into their curriculums and the wider reading that's given out to students.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm going to ask a question from the audience to spice things up. So obviously this year, one of the things I worked on was getting a NUS referendum every 3 years so that every student gets a chance to vote on our affiliation with the NUS at least once in their undergraduate or PhD degree. What are the candidates' thoughts on the Guild's relationship with the National Union of Students? I'm going to go to Sian first.
Sure, I think it can be a really beneficial relationship. I think especially with a lot of my points being about lobbying nationally, it can be a really great resource. But equally, I think there needs to be more transparent our actual interactions with it, because I feel like a lot of students don't actually know what the NUS does and what we do with them. So I think transparency and also utilising them to push for national change is a really important point.
Thank you. George.
Hi. So currently we're spending about £34,000 each year on our NUS membership as a university, and we as a university don't engage with our NUS a lot. So I believe that we should be holding another NUS referendum, but this time making sure that there is engagement from the student population. I believe last time there was about a 79% drop in engagement from students, and that really needs to be upped, and having full facts on the table and shown to students before we take any vote. I believe last time we remained in the NUS by about 144 votes, which is really a very much split down the middle decision. And I think that that needs to be something that is more thought through, so that we can either, talk to the NUS and be like, this is what we need from you, or we can withdraw and spend that money where it really matters on our campus, making sure it benefits our students.
Thank you, Sean. Lewis?
I think we need to have a referendum and leave. They haven't been there for us this year.
Lily?
So I think the main thing that we need to do is ensure that we're representing what the students want, and continuing your work, Sunday, in making sure that we are holding regular referendums on whether to stay in the NUS or leave. If we are to stay in the NUS, then we need to ensure that our students are able to mobilise and involve themselves in the campaigns, because we have seen some great stuff come out of NUS campaigns, and I think we need to make sure that our students are able to engage with that and get involved with it and push for the changes that we want to see.
Great, thank you so much, everyone. If anyone does want to get involved in the NUS campaign that Penny's leaving, do drop her a line. One manifesto out of the 4 mentions postgraduate funding. Have candidates considered postgraduate funding, and what other ways can the Guild better represent PhD students? I can't remember who I went to first last time. I'm going to go to Lily first because she was last last time. So do you want me to repeat the question? Yeah, okay, that's fine. I talk One manifesto mentions postgraduate funding. Have candidates considered postgraduate funding, and what other ways can the Guild better represent PhD students?
Okay, so I think PhD students have sort of been forgotten by the Guild, and part of that is because of what happened with the VP representation. So it's difficult, but that's happened. I think in terms of funding, what really needs to be looked at is the URKI funding and the COVID extension difficulties which have happened with that, even though those students have not been able to get into labs. So I think to do that, we really need to speak to PhD students and make sure that their thoughts are listened to, and also that we're really lobbying to make sure that they get the funding that they need and the extensions that they need for that.
Thank you, Lily. Sean?
So 2 things here. The first thing I agree is that they need a bigger say with the SSLC, so they have a bigger mandate to actually get change done. The second thing I would say is that too often postgraduates don't get enough funding, and that is a universal issue for everyone, not just Exeter. So I think that's one of the big issues that I want to tackle, is the fact that I want to take that to the source to make sure that no student has to take up personal loans to be able to afford their further education, because that's just not fair for anybody.
Thank you, Lewis.
I believe there needs to be better spending. The contributions of all students to this community is amazing, and especially PhD students on research and things like that. And I think that the 2 key issues in our manifesto, which I think apply to all students, is mental health support and student safety. And I think these 2 principles can be extended to PhD students, but they need better funding, definitely.
Thank you. Right, this is going to be a tough one.
I'm really sorry, but I think you missed me out on answering that.
Oh, I'm so sorry, George. I did.
Don't worry, I wanted to have a say.
Of course you do. Go ahead.
My 30 seconds have started. So with PGR students, I have attended many town halls and have seen what their issues are, and obviously I want to hear more about that. Having looked into their funding, a lot of self-funded students are having difficulties with COVID extensions, because obviously they get the extension, but they don't have the money to still live and buy food and everything. I think that definitely the university needs to lobby more actively for UKRI funding and work better on their funding policies. I think that in terms of spaces and in terms of what their supervisors are doing for the students needs to be looked at. And then
that's time, I'm afraid. Sorry, George. I did give you the full 30 seconds, just in case you're wondering. So, 2 manifestos allude to a tuition fee refund. Do candidates know how much this would cost the university, and how this would fit into the wider higher education fees and funding structure? I'm going to go to Lewis first.
This would cost exactly 80 million. And this is a reconciliation that the university needs to make with us as students. They've let us down, quite simply. We haven't had the facilities. And I believe that work needs to be done at government level to enforce this change, because I don't think universities are willing to actually give us students what we deserve, which is a refund. So we're going to try and force through change if elected. Thank you.
George?
I believe on this issue, kind of similar to Lewis, is that if elected, I would need to work with other SU presidents to make sure that we go to a government level, a national level, to make sure this issue is resolved. We're still obviously getting an education, but it's not the standard that we expect for the price that we pay. It would obviously need work into debt forgiveness policies, and also looking at the money back in hand for students that pay their own fees, or mainly international students. But that is something that needs work on, but it needs work not just at our university, but universities across the board.
Thank you, George. Lily?
So my understanding is that it would cost quite a bit more than 80 million, I think like 300 to 400, but either way, it's a considerable amount more than what Sunday was able to lobby for, Sunday and Live this year, which was one of like the biggest increases. So I think it's kind of unrealistic, but that's not to say that students don't deserve something back, but also fee refund would be regressive in that we wouldn't see that money until we pay off our debt, which would be in like 20 or 30 years, but students really need that money now. So I think we'll do much better to lobby for increased money to go into like hardship funds, go into the transition for online, that sort of blended learning, and to support students who have been most hard hit by COVID.
Thank you, Lily. Sian?
Yeah, so this is actually a really good point for mine, is I'm lobbying nationally, especially for tuition fees. So obviously I agree it's a astronomical amount that the university just simply can't do, partly because the reason that they don't actually get our funding until next year. So Michelle Donnellan actually said that the quality and quantity of teaching must remain the same to justify it. That isn't the case this year, which is why we're already lobbying for this, which is why we should partner with places like Falmouth and like LSE, who are already fighting for this on a national scale. Because it's not that we're against the staff here, it's not that. So we need to go to the source of the issue, and also not even that, reform it entirely anyway, because for the international students, domestic students, and mature students, it's entirely unfair.
That is time now. Thank you, Sian. So I'm going to take a question from Facebook, which is, how do you plan to work collaboratively with the other elected officers to implement your manifesto points? Lewis?
Well, we've got such an amazing array of different candidates who champion different issues, and I think the president shouldn't be there to dominate them and make other candidates only do the president's work. But I think mental health is an issue that all candidates care about and want to see improvements on. But as a president, I would definitely want to work to empower these VPs, who are all the candidates are amazing candidates with amazing original ideas. Thanks.
Thank you. Lily?
So ultimately, I think there should be sort of no hierarchy between the positions. And also a lot of the positions are looking, although not with the same, basically a lot of the different candidates are working for the same outcome, but through different measures. So for example, wellbeing, there are lots of different ways which all-round wellbeing can be supported. So working with liberation and inclusion, but also with academic wellbeing side of things, unless we look at all the different aspects which feed into the student experience and wellbeing, we can't really achieve that goal ultimately. Thank you. Sian?
I actually think it's the opposite. I think that the Guild President is there to advocate for the VPs because they are the experts in the field. You've nominated them and elected them because they know what needs to get done, which is why my manifesto is thematic, so that I can fit this in to what they have a vision for their respective positions, because at the end of the day, they know best. And I want to be there so I can both mirror your voice, but also mirror their voices too, because they're the ones with the great ideas.
Thank you, Sian. George?
I think the key idea that I have here is compromise. I've talked to a couple of VP candidates for different roles, and I've seen what their ideas are. And on a lot of them, we have similar ideas, we have similar goals, and it would be a case of compromising with them, going, okay, we both want the same outcome. We both want this to be the end goal. I have this idea, you have this idea. Let's put them together. Let's see what works, and work together. Make sure that the hierarchical structure, as much as it is there, is used to platform their voices rather than using it as an oppressive tool.
Ooh. Strong words there. I like it. It's great. Right, Facebook time. What would your approach to Gonna have to recollaborate a sentence, it's not quite right. What would your approach be? Oh no, it's me. What would your approach be to working with the Vice Chancellor and senior management of the university? Sian.
So you guys give us our mandate. I think actually that there needs to be a switch in the ideology, because theoretically the university should answer to us. We're the ones that are funding them. We're the ones that should get the say in everything that happens, from education to welfare to what they put their research and money into and what they fund. So I think we need to work with them, yes, but I also think they actually start taking their cues from us.
Thank you. Lily?
So I think the main thing that I would want to do would be to try and frame the outcomes that we want in a way which is something which they want to do and want to support us with. So I think I sort of displayed that in my work with for period poverty. There was a lot of pushback initially for getting money because apparently menstruation products are not sustainable, but then we were able to reframe the argument to ultimately get the same outcome, but in a way which fits with the overall university sort of goals and mandate.
Thank you. Lewis?
I'm not sure that they always work for us, and we need to work with them as students and represent our interests. We need a pragmatic relationship where we fight hard for what students want. And our first key policy that we want VC to support is £1 million extra for mental health for the university to spend on university services. Thanks.
Thank you. And George?
I think this relationship needs to be one that is proactive from the Guild side. I think it needs to be one that shows the university that the policies that we are trying to enact are benefiting your students. The more that you benefit your students, the more that your students are going to enjoy their university experience. And that is ultimately what you want from them. The more they enjoy it, the more students you will get in, the more that money you will get. And universities are ultimately run as a business. So hopefully that is something that will incentivize them. But I believe that this is something where the Guild president needs to be a pragmatic person who can make sure that their end goal is achieved no matter what the university say.
Thank you so much. Okay, right, we've got some more questions coming in on Facebook. I've got some more questions I'm going to ask you. I'm going to be indulgent. First time. So I'm just going to say 3 words, and I would like to get your comments on these 3 words. I'm going to come to George first. Sorry, I'm such a stirrer. Freedom of speech, George.
Oh, I know that you've been working on this quite a lot, Sunday. I've been trying to read my way through your document that you've been working on. It is something which I believe still needs work on, and there is government policy surrounding it. It's something where, like you've been doing, collecting a lot of people's opinions and making sure that that is a policy moving forward that is followed, is something that I would like to do. I think it's something where it's an across the board issue where people need access to all information in order to learn, but that also needs to be done in a controlled and safe environment where it is done on an education platform rather than stirring.
Thank you. Lewis?
We need to be well-being aware and have a well-being friendly speech on campus. And we also need reputable speakers. I think that's a really good way of enhancing our university experience. You know, the better the speakers we can get, the better experience we can have. I've had the honour of inviting many MPs to speak to students, and I think that's a really great aspect of student life, is being able to listen from professionals and leaders in the fields.
Thank you. Sian?
Yeah, so the government actually just updated their code of conduct, and so in February 2021, so really, really recently. So I think we should be taking our cues from that, and I know Sunday and the Guild have been working on it as well. So they've just finished their consultation period. I would like to extend that. So I would like to work with these 2 things, so the updated government advice for higher education providers and also the Guild consultation, to make sure that we have a compassionate way of going about this. So code of conduct that both protects the academic freedom and the freedom of speech of our students and of our speakers, but also provides live fact checkers for debates, and also make sure that there are welfare people that are there and designed to support those that maybe.
Time, Sian. Thank you very much. Lily, last but not least, freedom of speech.
Freedom of speech. Okay, so I think that what needs to be at the core is, of course, student wellbeing, but part of student wellbeing is allowing for live, healthy debate. And I think that the work that Guild is currently doing to ensure that that debate can continue whilst also being aware of the implications that certain speakers can have is really important. And I think we need to continue that. And I think we are, like, Exeter Guild is the leader in this area right now from the work that we're doing. So I think that needs to be continued, and we need to make sure that any freedom of speech legislation does not mean that students aren't allowed to protest and have their voices heard, whether that's in Exeter or UK-wide.
Thank you, Lily. Let's have a look on Facebook, because it's not the Sunday show. Visible Guild support is non-existent on St Luke's campus. G47 is no longer in use, and St Luke's students do not get value for money. How will you finally fix the issue of having a visible guild on St Luke's? I would like to go to George.
Oh, sorry. So one, I would like to make sure that the university is lobbied to put more money into St Luke's. They have outdated facilities. They need facilities that are equivalent to what students on Streatham campus expect. I also think that society engagement on St Luke's is something that we really need to consider. A lot of societies put a lot of their events on Streatham campus, meaning that St Luke's don't feel the same engagement that a lot of us on Streatham campus do. And I think that by making sure that societies hold events on St Luke's, medics, people on St Luke's can feel a lot more involved. Small things like that, making sure that their voices are heard, listening to the medic community about what they want, about what they need from their St Luke's campus. G47 was run at a loss, but implementing something like that again, where it can be financially secure, would be a good idea that I would like to look into.
Thank you. Lily.
Yeah, so I think one thing that we can do is ensuring communication. At the end of the day, it shouldn't be Streatham students and St Luke's students, it's students all round. But at the moment, St Luke's students' voices aren't really heard at the Guild, and therefore they're not really represented in terms of the policies and decisions that we make. So one thing that we can do is improve our presence and utilising that G47 space so that both sabbatical officers can use it to run drop-ins, which I would like to do to ensure that I can have interaction with St Luke's students, but also ensuring that we push societies to hold events in that space so that St Luke's students can get involved with societies which traditionally host events only on Streatham campus.
Thank you, Sian.
I'm really lucky because I've been able to be on St Luke's because I had affiliation with the AU with cheer, so I actually train there quite a lot. So it's a really great space and needs to be utilised more. But this is the thing, I can say a million things about what I think should change, but I'm not on there as a student academically day to day. So therefore, I think the first thing we should do is actually speak to the people that are on there and speak to the medic students, see what they want. So a few things I've already I've been speaking to students about is I go to shuttle buses, so there is more interaction between students there and more footfall, which obviously is going to have a knock-on effect to mean that you have a better experience there over. And I also think that freshers should be expanded so that more is on to.
Time. Thank you so much, Sian. Lewis.
Well, I promise to be there. Even if the only base I can get there is a cupboard, I will genuinely sit in a cupboard and be there because the presence there isn't good enough. Let's get the uni management down there as well. I'll put them in the cupboard. But safety is important for us all. And that is one thing that we want to improve in Exeter. And also with an extra £1 million spent on mental health, why can't some of that money be spent on St Luke's? The university should consider that and do that.
Strong words from Lewis about sitting in cupboards. I was trying to round up what you were saying. It came out really bad. I mean, like about dedication to student representation, even if it means sitting in cupboards. Great. I love to see it. All of you are giving fantastic answers, doing well, smashing it out the park. Make sure you're drinking water and breathing. See a few pink faces, a few blue faces. Just make sure you breathe. Remind yourself that everything's fine. Water, great. And it's a filter, Lewis. Great. Because it is a bit, I do find that Devonshire water is a little bit hard. It's why I had pink hair the other day, because I tried to tone the hair. Anyway, enough of the Sunday rambling interlude. Let's have a look. Okay, so none of you are international students. I'm not an international student. What do international students need and how do you know this? I'm going to go to Lily first.
Okay, so I think the most striking thing that international students need is clarity around wellbeing support. So there's been a lot of issues with wellbeing support with international phone numbers and students which are outside of the UK, and I think that's something which can actually be addressed relatively easily just by opening up communication channels and seeing what the issues are and how we can overcome them. We also need to have a culturally competent guild, and that happens through cultural competency training. We can't just say that we are actively listening to international students or we're actively including them if we don't understand the cultural needs that they have and the experiences that they have. And then finally, we need to have clarity surrounding COVID vaccination and travel, which is going to be an issue.
That's time, Lily. Thank you so much. Lewis, from the closet. No, I'm joking. Sorry, I'm teasing you.
So for international students, we're proud to have an international student on our team who has been a really influential person, Eve, who is our Wellbeing and Diversity Secretary. And the key thing for her that she has mentioned as an international student, she has felt that communication has not quite been right, and also wellbeing services with experience and also discussions with international students on wellbeing services, they've not been accessible enough, and we need to improve that. And also we need to integrate short-term students. And lastly, we need adequate spare prayer space and a multi-faith prayer room, which should not be shelved by the university.
Time, Lewis, but yes, I remember sitting last year banging on about prayer rooms. Fortunately, I had no time to work on it because I have been at home all year. Great, good time to be Guild President. George.
Hello. So one thing that I would want to make sure that is done during the reign of the next Guild President, reign's the wrong word there, but making sure that international students are heard, that they're listened to, that there are focus groups set up for them, that there are coffee mornings for them to come along and voice what their concerns are, whether that be big or small, making sure that international students are supported through the Brexit transition, making sure that there are visa sponsored only careers fairs, making sure that their festivals and their cultures are celebrated from the Guild, making sure there are events for them to come to that they can, also teach us about their culture so that we can learn from them. I think this is something that needs to be led by them.
Time, George. So sorry. I like the rain. I'm going to start calling myself Princess Sunday for the rest of the year. Sean.
Okay, so two-pronged approach here. I think institutionally there needs to be more change, because it can be really isolating, I feel, to be an international student from everyone I've spoken to, and that just simply isn't good enough, because there should be enough provided for them. So I think one thing we can do is bring back in the peer scheme, but only revamp it and have input from students that are international so that it actually works for them. I also think there should be better careers events for students, especially with the changes to the visa next year, and also obviously with the effect of Brexit, but equally on an institution and a national level, I think there should also be a fight to make things more transparent with fees, because it is just ridiculous, the discrepancy between domestic and international students, and that needs to be looked into.
Yeah, 100%. Lots of fees coming out of your international students. Thank you so much for that. I'm going to go back to Facebook. How would you work on the relationship between the Guild and the AU? I'm going to go to George. I'm not going to start calling Princess George because I'm being
one word slip up. I'm going to have
my sarcasm is coming out, and it's fine. I'm just joshing all of you.
Anyway, hopefully my 30 seconds starts now.
It does, yeah.
One thing I'd like to say is I think that there's a lot that we can learn from the AU. They have a lot of EDI training that I think, as obviously Shana said, that we need to work off of. They've got a lot of training in place that I think the Guild can learn from. One thing I think we do need to do is make sure that the Guild can provide the same support to its members that the AU does in terms of both funding and staffing. The AU does receive a lot more funding than the Guild does. It does have a lot more staff per student ratio, a higher staff to student ratio than the Guild does. And I think that is something that needs to be addressed. However, I think that is something that we can learn from the AU, and I would love to work with the AU to make sure that...
That's time. Thank you. I'm going to go over to Lewis.
So the AU is really incredible, and the sports, the diversity of sport we have in the university is really, really cool to see. Even though my football career only went to a kind of domestic team where we drank beers at 9 a.m, but we'll ignore that. The wellbeing support and the spending at the AU is much higher than the Guild, and we need to level that up at the Guild and ensure that the Guild is strong, very strong for the students, as it is the athletic union.
Thank you. Lily.
So this year I've been really lucky in that I've worked really closely with the AU in terms of training their committee members for the clubs in terms of welfare. So it's been really great to get that insight into how the AU works. Although I've been a member, I've never really been that involved. So working with Ben has been really great and forging that relationship. What I can see is that there's sort of a slight disconnect in the leadership of the two organisations. And I think that's something that would be really important, would be to improve communication, make communication more regular, and then improve collaborative work towards the goals that we all ultimately want to see, which is improved student experience, which I think working together we can use resources more effectively to do that.
Thank you so much, Lily. Sean?
Yeah, so I think I'm really lucky. I have a really good insight because I've been the head of both AU and guild clubs and societies. So I think the main thing is that there is a disconnect. Like Lily said, it needs to be worked on. So part of the reason why I've actually partnered with Ayla, she's running for AU president, is the fact that we both know that the more the AU and the Guild work together, the bigger mandate we have to challenge the university. And I think one of the big things about that is the fact that we need across the board EDI training that is similar, no matter whether you're in an AU club or whether you're in a guild society. And I think one of the great things about that is we can work on bystander intervention, because at the end of the day, we are one student body. It doesn't matter which club you're associated with. So therefore, and you're still going to the same businesses as well. So therefore, the same protections and the same training needs to go out to every committee. So I think that's a really important point.
Thank you so much. Yeah, definitely. We also do have an AU president running in these elections, separate from the guild, but runs alongside us, and obviously cooperation and collaboration is essential. So I'm going to talk about something a little bit serious now. So I'll stop being sarcastic and making jokes about princesses and cupboards. But the rise in racism towards Asian students went up a lot last year, particularly in February before the lockdown. What can we do about racism on campus in a year that has seen movements such as Black Lives Matter and the protests surrounding George Floyd's death? I'm going to come to Lily first.
So I think often universities, SUs, guilds take the rhetoric of like stamping out racism, which is all good and well if people are spending all of their time at university within the institution, but that's simply not the case. I mean, all of us know the limited contact hours that we get. So what we need to do is make sure that we're not only having these projects to stamp out racism within our university, but we're taking those community wide, and that needs to be done by improving our relationships with the local community and improving them with official sort of services within the local community to make sure that we truly do everything that we can to remove racism, both in the university but also in the surrounding area.
Thank you very much, Lily. George.
I very much agree with Lily here. I think that it is something that we need to work on both at a university and guild level, and something that we need to work on with in the community, as obviously microaggressions will not just only come from on campus, but will also come from the community. I think we also need to make sure that there is an anonymous complaints forum where any issues that are brought up can be dealt with and can be submitted without fear of judgment in just the complaint procedure itself. I think that we obviously need a lot more cultural competence training, not only within our wellbeing system, but within guild training, whether that be at a society level, at a committee level, or obviously at a guild staff level. It definitely needs to be there so that anybody who does come forward knows that they will be supported and knows that they will be supported effectively.
Thank you so much. Lewis.
In our campaign, I'm proud to say that we've championed diversity. We have, as you've mentioned, about the racist attacks on Asian people, which I think is just unacceptable. And we have Eve, who is an Asian student who, she's our welfare and diversity secretary, and she stands up against this hate, as we do with her. There's no space for this. We need robust reporting and a robust discipline process, and at a multi-level, and also formal education and awareness in this university.
Thank you. Sean.
So with this, what I mentioned about bystander intervention training is really important both for our societies and also all levels of the guild, but equally the businesses that our students frequent, because if we can stamp it out there, then it's going to be a hell of a lot easier for anyone to actually point out and go, no, I'm sorry, what you're doing is wrong, and it needs to be challenged. Equally, I think that there also needs to be education, because one of the great things about education is that if you can change someone's mindset, then it also gets rid of these problems. So things like changing and giving more of a mandate to Bain and to international students within SLCs is going to be really important as well, so that we can decolonise the curriculum. I think equally, we also just need to make sure that they're getting a say in what they think is going to protect them, make them feel more safe on campus and around Exeter in general too.
Thank you, Sean. Great answers on a topic that sadly we do have to bring up. Now, the role of an OSCE officer is very responsive, as well as being a strategic role. Things that have happened this year have been rent strikes, bombs, pandemics, not to mention any of the things that goes on behind the scenes. How will you factor in that responsive work alongside working on the strategic aims of your manifesto? George.
So I think one thing that needs to be done in terms of responsive work is making sure that what you're responding to the issue with is also communicated to students. I know this is something that obviously with the bomb recently, students been moved to new houses. wasn't communicated effectively to them. They haven't been supported during that move. They haven't really had a lot of contact during that. And that is something that I think they deserve, whether it's the issue with the bomb or whether it's with any responsive issue that is brought up throughout the time as Guild president. I think that it's something where in responsive work, you need to be a quick problem solver. You need to be quick on your feet. And that is something which I do have experience with in terms of producing shows. But it is...
Time, George. Thank you. Lewis?
I think there's three things: organisation, leadership, and communication. You need to be very, very organised in a position like this. It's a high stress position. And I think my professional experience prepared me for that. But you also need to lead. You need to be clear with your communication, and you need to be someone who the students feel they can trust, and you know that they know that they're getting the right information from you. Thank you.
Thank you. Lily?
So I think, again, organisation is obviously important, but I don't think any level of organisation could have overcome the bomb that was found on campus. But I think something that's really important is working with other sabbatical officers and student groups that also are looking to do the same things as you in terms of like the core manifesto goals that I have, and working collaboratively is going to utilise resources more effectively and is going to reach those goals more easily. And also I hope that some of the core manifesto goals that I have will reduce some of that responsive work, because I think a lot of responsive work does come from systems which are ultimately failing. So hopefully it would sort of be a win on both accounts.
Thank you. Sian?
I think resilience here is a really big point, because if you can roll with the punches, you're going to be able to work to a lot more efficient standard. And I think I don't know, I'm not going to go much into it, but I think I've shown throughout this this campaign that I am that, and also for the last 3 years of the fact that I've been in multiple committee positions and doing a degree concurrently. I would also say that both the strategic and the responsive actions, the students need a bigger say in what those actions are. So I want to make sure that focus groups are there so that they can actually have their say in, so that their morals and their feelings are represented when you take those actions.
Great. Thank you so much for those answers. I'm just looking at George, like, have I ignored George yet? No, okay. Oh, goodness me, this is a lot, isn't it? Drink, breathe, everyone. That's as much to myself as it is to you guys.
Can I ask for 30 seconds to run and grab water? I know that we're in the middle of this, but
of course you can. Of course you can. Let's take a break. 30 seconds. Go on. I'll get them to time the 30 seconds because they've been doing that on your answers. I don't know if anyone can see, but George has got a Christmas tree up in the corner, and I'm absolutely loving the dedication to the festive spirit. So, oh, here she is. It was be awkward then. I'll have to talk to you guys. Right, okay, so some of your manifesto looks at structural and procedural elements of the Guild and how the Guild functions. I want to talk about when things go wrong. How does the Guild handle things when things go wrong? I'll let you interpret what that means. And how can we do it better? Sian?
I think accountability is going to be a massive thing here. I think being able to raise your hands up and go, you know what, actually we took the wrong course of action there, and we're really sorry. We actually want to see how we can fix that for students and make sure that we don't make those same mistakes. It's really, really important. It's all well and good to hide mistakes, like we saw with the VAT thing with the RAM, and it comes out in the end anyway, is what we've seen. So I think accountability and making sure that you're transparent with every decision that you make, and regardless of how it ends, is going to be the most important thing. It's also going to mean that the student body trusts you and trusts that you have their best interests at heart too.
Thank you, Sian. Lewis?
I would say effective systems and communication. I've been on committees and organised events for activities, and there have been several issues that I've had that could have been solved just by some clearer communication, just simple things, and being aware of things and processes that I had to do before. So the processes could be made easier as well, but communication is the key thing here.
Thank you so much, Lewis. Lily?
So I'm going to take a slightly different tact on my interpretation of the question and look at like complaints reform, because I think that is something going wrong and something that we need to address. I think it's something that's been brought up and on a number of different sort of candidates across the board. But I think we really need to look at the complaints process which students are currently forced to go through and look at how it's absolutely not fit for purpose. Students are re-traumatized by going through the complaints process that we currently have. It means that students that are having academic misconduct complaints, or students which are complaining about racism, and students which are complaining about sexual misconduct, all have to go through the same channels, which is absolutely not appropriate. So those different students need different support at different times. So I think we really need to look at that process, consult students, and then reform it so it really reflects what students need from it.
Great, thank you so much. I'm sure everyone's been through the Guild complaint procedure at some point. George.
Hi. So in terms of what the Guild does when things go wrong is, one, I believe that in this role, you need to hold both yourself, the Guild and the university to account on all the actions that are taken. I think that in terms of making sure that things don't go wrong in the first place is, again, as Lois said, you need open communication. I think that every single project that the Guild works on should be available for students to look at on the Guild website. In terms of updating it, I think there should be a tile on it that says, this is what we're currently working on. And just each SAB officer writes like a little paragraph at the end of the week and goes, this is what I've been working on. This is what we've been doing. And hopefully that should stop errors that happen further down the line, and students can be engaged with what the Guild are working on.
Thank you so much, George. That's time. And I'm going to ask some questions from Facebook now. So we have had fantastic turnout. We had 500 votes in the first 10 minutes. Which, you know, voting opened at 9, so it's big, it's huge. You guys are great. I love it. Obviously I got very excited about the fact that there was a non-Guild debate going as well. I feel like we've gone big, we've gone to America or something, but points of information. Anyway, I should not be plugging them on this platform, sorry. So despite this engagement, a student has said that 75%, I don't know where that percentage has come from, but allegedly 75% of the students will not vote in these elections. We'll see about that because we are offering free sausage rolls. If indeed 75% of students do not vote, how will you engage with these students? George, please.
I believe engagement obviously is something that we do need to work on as a university. I think that it's a case of going to the students rather than asking the students to come to you. So something which I really admire that you have done this year, Sunday, is going to where the students are, going to Overheard, and, you know, not just posting it on Guild forums, but posting it on forums where the students already are, to make sure that they do engage with it. Obviously holding focus groups, making sure that their voices are heard, but that will only be students who are already engaged with the material. I think it's a case of making sure that you utilize social media platforms in all aspects to make sure that that Guild presence is there and they can check it out if they want to, making sure it's completely accessible to them.
Thank you. Lewis?
This is where I think activist groups within the university are also vital, because no matter what the result of this election is, there will be groups that have not voted, as you said, and many of these groups are represented by student activists and activist groups such as the Disability Campaign, just to name one. But also there's a grassroots problem too, I think, and this links back to mental health, where students who do not involve or engage with the Guild may not engage with other systems such as the Wellbeing Centre. So we want to improve services so students who do not normally engage can be reached.
Thank you. Got it out. Right, Lily.
So I think Sunday, yourself and the other officers this year have done an absolutely fantastic job of improving communication with students and making sure that students really do feel heard and feel like if they do have an issue, a concern, or even an idea or something positive to feedback, they're able to do that and they know how. And part of that comes from just making sure that your face is seen, obviously not in terms of a physical sense because of everything being online, but just that online presence is really important, and that helps to engage students. And I think that's the reason we've seen such a rise in votes. Hopefully we can continue that. But I think things like the town hall meetings have been really fantastic. I've been to a few of them and I've seen you guys there as well, which has been great. But I think making sure that we really publicise them and make students feel like they can come, because it can.
That's the end of your 30 seconds, Lily. Thank you. Not as quick as Lewis. Sian.
I think it's really important to understand the reasons why they're not voting to begin with. So obviously if there's an institutional problem that isn't being addressed, you need to look into why that's happening. And I think one of the things is, if they don't want to vote in this election, that realistically you can sort of speak to them as much as you want, not want to vote. What you can do though is, from there, once you actually get into the position, is actively go and change and seek out these students to go, okay, well, for next time, what can we do to improve your experience, and what we can do to actually make you believe in an institution that is ideally there for you. So I think it really goes down to sort of proving that you are there for them rather than just swearing you are to get their votes.
Thank you. Okay, I've got one more from me, one more from Facebook now. I'm going to go with the Facebook one, and then I'm going to go with my one to end on a bombshell. That is not a reference to what happened a few weeks ago, but yeah. Okay, so I can't believe I had a bomb on campus while some pandemic bomb, and then the news today. There's an unexploded grenade now found in the city centre. I just honestly, it goes over me like waves these days. Okay, so what can you do to support BAME students? So BAME is Black, Asian and minority ethnic students, to ensure inclusion and diversity is celebrated, and societies like Queer BAME Collective are part of the growing representation within the university. Sian?
So I think two things there. I think signposting is really important and making sure that these clubs are celebrated. Things like ACF, things like White Society, things like the Queer Collective, like and Decolonize Excellent that you've just spoken about. I think it's really important to signpost those and make sure people know that they are out there and they are advocating for students. I think equally there's a really good point to stop performativism as well, and making sure that we care beyond just Black History Month, and making sure that we reach out throughout the year to these institutions and to these groups to make sure that they get their voice heard and those events they want to run go throughout the year as well.
Great, thank you so much. Lewis?
One key thing we can do is boost societies, have more events. I want to attend these events from the Bain community. I think that'd be great to have a guild presence at these events, and also guild society takeover days. That's one thing we want to do from our campaign, is have these takeover days to give a bigger platform to these different societies from Bain backgrounds. And also we have on our team Hussein, who is the Bain academic experience rep. So we need to make our academic experience more diverse and inclusive.
Thank you. Lily?
So I think we can look at getting more money for liberation projects and diverse celebrations, which really represent the student body that we have, and ensuring that when we have these celebrations, liberation projects and events, the Guild doesn't try to sort of take the lead in that if there are student groups which are taking the lead. Instead, we work collaboratively with those student groups, because there are some incredible students out there who are putting on such fantastic events, and we don't want the Guild events to take over from that. What we want to do is make sure that we give them the support they need to run them and boost them, and make sure that
Time now, Lily, thank you. Good point though. Sian? Oh no, who did I not come to? George. Oh, do you know what? It's honestly, I lose count.
Sunday, but you know what? I'll roll with it.
I'm so sorry. I'm
okay,
honestly, your 30 seconds haven't started yet either. Don't worry about that.
Okay. One thing I think the Guild does need to do is learn from the BAME communities that we have on our campus. I think they're, incredible in the activism that they are doing, the events that they are holding, and I think, as Lily said, collaborative work with them to make sure that their work is platformed, to make sure that the Guild learns and it's not just doing performative actions, that they are invested, that they are engaged, and that the Guild themselves are learning. I think it's also a case of making sure that the welfare support is there for them, but their voice is heard in every single decision the Guild make going forwards.
Thank you, and I'm very sorry. That's the only time I've done that this time, but honestly, it is trying to come to different people as well and not have the same. Yeah, don't want to offend anyone, but I always put you last, always first. Anyway, you're all fantastic. You know I love you, and you know that I want 4 president positions, so I can have you all as president, because you're great. So, last summer, we had no graduations in person. We have also had no freshers in person. And whilst the university will say that students aren't signing up for freshers or graduation ceremonies, they're signing up to learn, what can we do? What impact has this had on the student body? And what will you do as Guild President to rectify it? I'm going to come to Sian first.
I think there's a trend to go ahead and be able, once we get back to the old normal, there isn't an old normal. We're probably never going to get back to exactly the way that it was pre-COVID. So I think one of the things we can do is make sure that we have plans for every eventuality and make sure that they are well thought through. Because yes, the university put a lot of funding into things like Project Restart and Project Ensure this year, but they didn't necessarily work all that well for us. So I think one of the best things that we can do is make sure that those plans are sort of well thought out and the money that's put into them is thought about as well. I think another really important point for this is the fact that we want to make sure that student voices get the best say in this, because they know what they're going to interact with more than anything else.
Thank you so much, Sian. George?
So one thing I think that needs to be thought out is the case of making sure all eventualities are thought through going forwards, with all potential government restrictions thought about in advance. In terms of graduation, I know that myself and a lot of other graduates this year feel like we haven't had a proper rounding off to our university experience. And I think what the Guild and the university need to do is talk to people that are graduating this year and go, okay, we can do X, Y, Z. What do you want to see? Let's hear your voice on what you want. In terms of Fresh Week, I think, again, there needs to be digital events trainings for societies to make sure that what they're doing is informed and they know how to do it, and there is support available from the Guild, and that they know what they can do like week by week with proper communication from the Guild going forwards.
Thank you so much. I'm going to go to Lewis.
Well, firstly, how about graduation in the cathedral? That would be very, very cool. But we want to ensure a positive student experience. Let's work in a way that ensures no students miss out. Let's have opportunities for freshers who have missed out this year to then meet new friends, get new networks, and also for graduates to leave this university with a really, really positive experience so they can look back and be happy at the time they had in Exeter.
Thank you, Lewis. That is all of us want for our students. Lily?
So I think something which I really want to highlight is not allowing the university to make decisions to save money and taking away from the student experience. So I think that is something which is quite likely to happen for graduation this year. And I know that people who are graduating this summer, it's really on their minds right now. And I want to make sure that if there are in-person events happening on campus that aren't graduation, then we need to fight for our graduation, because why can't we do it if it's safe to have other in-person events? And in terms of freshers, I think we need to make sure that there are events for current first years, so that cohort doesn't just get sort of lost in the freshers events, which are going to be happening for new first years.
Great. Thank you so much. Whoever is elected will have the pleasure of working with Public Health England for Devon. So enjoy. I'm leaving. Right. Thank you to the candidates for participating today, and of course to everyone who tuned in live or is watching this back, because this will be cemented into digital immortality. Make sure that you check out the other Question the Candidates events for the college officers and full-time officers, which have been done earlier in the week, that you can watch back on Facebook or YouTube if you are still not sure on who to vote for. Take the time to read all the manifestos. If you can, talk to the candidates. It is so important that you use your student voice and vote for students who will represent your priorities and enhance your student experience. Voting is now open and closes on Thursday. That's tomorrow at 4 p.m. So you have less than 24 hours to get voting. If you've only voted for some of the roles, go back and vote for the rest. Just make sure you do before tomorrow at 4 p.m. and results will be announced on Friday evening. Now, before we go, I'd like to get a quick sentence from each candidate on why students should vote for you. First up, I'm going to go to George.
Hi, I think you should vote for me because of my well-rounded experience. I think you should vote for me because it is your interest that I want to platform in this role. Please DM me if you want to ask any more questions about my manifesto. I know that it's wide-ranging, but that's all the topics that I want to cover, because I don't think we can move forwards unless we accept every single barrier that is facing us as a university. Thank you for your time and thank you for watching.
Thank you so much, George. Lewis?
You should vote Lewis for president to see an agenda for mental health and student safety. And also, very quickly, please check out our new YouTube video, which documents a diary from January to now, the experience of running a campaign in a lockdown. Thank you, everybody. Please vote.
Thank you so much, Lewis. Lily?
So I care about every single student at this university. I want to listen to every single student and I want to make things better for you. I have the experience and the plans to do so. So please vote for me.
Thank you so much, Lily. And Sian?
I'm going to use my tagline here. So I really want to ensure that the Guild is in safe hands next year. So I want to use all my experience in every role I've ever had here to make sure that even though I've had the opportunity to advocate for myself and for my peers, that I can equally echo all your voices, and anyone who ever felt that they either couldn't or didn't have the opportunity to speak for themselves and speak up for their education and their experience as a university student. So read my manifesto, and I really hope that it resonates with some of you, and hopefully you vote. And remember that your second vote also counts just as much as your first, so consider that too.
Yes. Thank you, Sian. I was actually going to forget to remind people of that. You have got a single transferable vote, so rank your preferences. Now, I'm going to quickly round up by saying thank you so much. Please do make sure your voice is heard. I know that a lot of difficult themes have come up tonight. We have got wellbeing on the university website if you want to deal with any issues that have come up for you around racism, sexual assault, financial security. And we will post those on our social media afterwards. May I also remind you that whilst these elections stir a lot of strong feelings and people get very passionate about the people that they vote for, when you are reflecting on the candidates, please do so kindly and with compassion. No one knows how difficult it is to go through this until you're up here, and everyone here is incredibly brave. I've spent hours talking to each of these candidates, fallen in love with all of them, and honestly, all of them just want to make the university a better place. So kindness, compassion, and bleed green. Thank you, everyone. Bye.